My name is Alex Bishop. I'm 30 years old, and I've been married to my wife, Jenna, for just over 3 years now. Jenna is a wonderful woman, sharp, quick-witted, and, as I always tell her, she's the kind of person who can light up a room with a smile. I've been lucky. We met in college and spent several years together before making it official. Most people around us thought we were the perfect couple. We laughed a lot, traveled together, shared a lot of our hopes and dreams. It was good. And at 30, I thought I was at a good point in my life. I had my career teaching history at a local high school, and things seemed to be going well for both of us. Then one evening, everything shifted. It started when Jenna came home from work and announced something that caught me completely off guard. She had that look on her face, the one she gets when she's preparing for a difficult conversation, the kind that makes you hold your breath, unsure of what's about to come next. She was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, her purse still on her shoulder, her eyes nervously darting around as if she were waiting for my reaction. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, her voice quiet, almost too calm. I remember feeling that knot of tension form in my stomach. Something was wrong. Maybe it was her tone, maybe it was the way she wouldn't look me in the eye. Either way, I knew I needed to brace myself for something I wasn't prepared for. I set the fork down, pushing my dinner plate aside, trying to hide the unease spreading across my face. "Sure," I said, trying to sound nonchalant, but it came out strained. "What's going on?" She hesitated for a moment before sitting down across from me. I could see her hands shaking slightly. She took a deep breath. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice low. "And I've made a decision. This Friday, I'm going on a date with someone." I must misheard her. "What? A date?" The words came out in a mix of disbelief and confusion. "Yes," she said, still looking down at her hands, as if she couldn't quite bear to meet my gaze. "A date. With a guy from work." I couldn't believe it. The woman I had married, the woman who I had built a life with, was telling me she was going to go on a date with another man. I felt like I had been slapped. "You're serious? You're telling me you're going on a date with someone else?" I repeated, my voice rising. She nodded slowly. "Yes. And I want you to understand, this doesn't mean I don't love you. It's not about that. I just think I need to explore some things about myself, things that I've been keeping inside for a while." I felt a sickening wave of anger and hurt surge through me. "Jenna, what are you talking about? You're my wife. We've been together for 3 years. We have a life together. And now you're telling me you're going to go out with someone else?" She looked up at me finally, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. "I know this might sound crazy, but I just want to see where it goes. I've been feeling trapped, Alex. I need to see if there's something else out there for me, something that I've never had the chance to explore. I hope you understand." I couldn't speak. The room seemed to close in around me. All of my thoughts were scattered, my mind racing in 1,000 directions. This was not happening. I had always believed that our love was something that could withstand anything. But now, I wasn't so sure. "Are you serious about this?" I finally managed to ask, though the words came out almost in a whisper. She nodded again. "Yes. I think this will make me feel more complete, Alex. It's not about you or us, not really. But I feel like I've been stifled. And I just need to see what it feels like to be free." The silence between us was thick. I stared at her, trying to make sense of what she had just said. It felt like a betrayal, like a knife being twisted in my chest. I thought back to all of the good times, the vacations, the late-night conversations, the promises we had made to each other. But now, this. I wanted to scream, to argue, to demand that she take it back. But something in me, something deep down, knew that arguing wasn't going to change anything. She had made up her mind, and I was left sitting there, in shock, trying to process what was happening to the life I thought I understood. "Okay," I said, my voice sounding hollow even to me. "You want to go on a date. Fine. But don't expect me to just sit here and be okay with it." Jenna looked at me, her face clouded with uncertainty. "I don't want to hurt you, Alex." "I swear I don't. I know," I interrupted, my voice sharper than I intended. "But this isn't just something you can spring on me and expect me to go along with it. I don't know what to say right now. But this is a big deal. And you're asking me to just accept it?" She looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the intensity of the conversation. "I don't want to hurt you. I really don't. But I need to do this. Please understand." I stood up, pacing the room. "I don't understand, Jenna. I don't think I ever will." And I meant it. How could I? How could I wrap my head around the fact that my wife, my partner, the woman I loved, wanted to go out with someone else? How could I accept that? I wasn't sure I could. "Okay," I said after a long silence, trying to calm myself. "This is what we're doing now. You're going on a date, and I'm supposed to just be okay with it." "Fine." Jenna's eyes seemed to soften, but she still looked uncertain. "Alex, I'm not going to stop you," I said firmly, cutting her off. "But we need to talk about this more. There's no way we can just pretend like everything is normal. If you're really going to do this, we need to set some boundaries. Some ground rules. Because if we don't, I don't know how this is going to work." She seemed to think for a moment, then nodded. "You're right. We do need to talk about it. I don't want you to feel like I'm leaving you or that I don't care. I love you, Alex. But I need to do this. For me. For you," I repeated bitterly, my voice trembling slightly. "Right. For you." I walked away, feeling a mixture of rage and helplessness. I wasn't sure what to do, how to react. The woman I loved was asking for space, for something I didn't understand, and I felt like I was losing her right in front of me. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, my mind spinning. Could I trust her? Could I trust this marriage? Was this really something I could accept? I needed to know more. I needed to understand if there was more to this than she was telling me. The next morning, I decided I needed to dig deeper. I couldn't just sit by and let things unfold without any sense of control. As Jenna got ready for work, I pretended to go through my usual routine. But in my mind, something was shifting. I knew I couldn't just let her walk away from this marriage without understanding why she was doing this. I needed answers. Later that day, while she was out, I went through her phone. I didn't like that I was doing it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. There had to be more to her decision than just needing space. I had to know who this man was. And when I found his name in her texts, Mark Donovan, her coworker, something inside me snapped. This wasn't just an innocent date. Something was going on, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face the truth. What was Jenna really looking for? And was I prepared for what I might find? And finally, she went on her date. The days that followed Jenna's revelation felt like an endless storm. I tried to convince myself that maybe it was just a phase, that she'd come to her senses and we'd be okay. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same again. The image of her sitting across from me, calmly telling me she was going on a date with another man, Mark Donovan, the very name that lingered in my mind, was a wound that wouldn't heal. I kept telling myself to breathe, to think things through, but the truth was, I was unraveling. I had spent years building a life with this woman, a life I thought was filled with trust, love, and respect. And now, here I was, sitting in the wreckage of it all, wondering how I could ever rebuild. The night she went on that date, I stayed up late, pacing, clenching my fists. I had no idea what she was doing, what she was feeling, or if she even cared about the damage she was causing. I told myself I'd wait for her to come back, to talk, to maybe make sense of all of this. But when she finally did return, hours later than I expected, she looked different. She wasn't the woman I married anymore. There was something colder in her eyes, something detached. She told me the date had gone well, that it was nice to feel desired again. I didn't say much, just nodded, feeling my stomach twist with every word she spoke. And the weeks after that were a blur. Jenna began seeing Mark regularly, and I began to drift further away from her, emotionally distant. I couldn't stop thinking about what she had done. I didn't want to be the man who begged and pleaded for her to stay. That wasn't me. But neither was I willing to accept this new version of her, someone who was willing to tear apart everything we had just for a taste of something else. So I made a decision. I filed for divorce. I never told Jenna the exact moment I decided. It wasn't one conversation, one argument, or one incident that tipped me over the edge. It was a series of things: her cold detachment, the lies she was starting to weave around her late nights with Mark, the hollow apologies that never seemed to mean anything anymore. She had already checked out, and it felt like I was the only one left holding onto the wreckage of our marriage. When I told her, I wasn't angry. I didn't scream or yell or throw anything. I simply looked at her, sitting across from me in our living room, and said, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. We're over." Her reaction wasn't what I expected. There were no tears, no begging, no panic. Instead, she looked relieved. "I understand," she said quietly, standing up and walking toward the door. "I think I've known for a while that we were done." That night, as she packed her things and left the house we'd shared, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. It was as if the weight I'd been carrying for months had finally been lifted. I was free. Or at least I told myself I was. Months passed. Jenna moved on quickly. Mark was still in the picture at first, and I had to remind myself that it was her choice, her path. I focused on rebuilding my life, finding solace in the small things, long runs in the park, grading papers, spending time with friends. The ache of betrayal was still there, but it started to fade, replaced by a growing sense of anger and determination. It was when I got the call about Jenna that everything changed. She had been seeing someone new, a guy she met shortly after our divorce. But, just like her pattern with me, it had fallen apart. The man had left her, and now Jenna was back on my doorstep, tear-streaked and broken. Her once bright eyes were now clouded with regret. She begged me to take her back, to forgive her, to give her another chance. And in that moment, I realized something. She wasn't just asking for my forgiveness. She was asking for me to save her from the consequences of her own choices. But I wasn't interested in saving her anymore. No, I wanted something else. She wanted back into my life. Fine. But this time, the rules were different. The tables had turned, and I had no intention of letting her back in without making her understand exactly what she had done to me. I welcomed her back, not out of love, but out of something far darker, a desire for revenge. The first few days were awkward. Jenna moved in with me again, this time under the guise of starting fresh, as if nothing had happened. She apologized endlessly, but each apology felt empty. She told me she had learned her lesson, that she was different now. She didn't want to be that person anymore. But I could see through the facade. She wasn't the woman I had married, and she wasn't the woman who had left. She was someone else, entirely someone who had been broken, humbled, and lost. And I was the one who held the power. I set my terms. At first, it was subtle. Small things. She no longer had the freedom to come and go as she pleased. I asked her to check in when she went out, where she was, who she was with. If she was late, no matter the reason, she was to send me a message. Simple enough, right? But I could see the shift in her demeanor. She became more subdued, more cautious. The control I had once lost was now in my hands again, and I reveled in it. Then came the rules for the house. She was no longer my partner, no longer my equal. In my home, she had to follow my commands. She had to do the chores, everything from cooking and cleaning to handling things like laundry and groceries. The change in her was palpable. At first, she tried to resist, tried to hold on to the illusion of her independence, but the power had shifted. She was no longer in control. I wasn't just letting her back into my life, I was putting her in her place. One evening, I decided to test her. I came home from work, had a long, hard day, and walked into the living room. Jenna was sitting on the couch, her head down, almost as if waiting for me. Without speaking, I pointed to the kitchen, signaling her to start making dinner. I didn't say please or thank you. I didn't need to. Her reaction? She stood up, her shoulders slumped, and walked into the kitchen without a word. That night, as she served me dinner, I felt a twisted satisfaction. She was broken. She was now my slave, my possession. Weeks went by, and I watched as Jenna lost more of her former self. The woman who had once been strong, independent, and full of life was now nothing more than a shadow of her former self. She obeyed every command I gave without question, without resistance. She made my meals, cleaned my house, and even helped me with things I hadn't asked her to do. I'd watch her from across the room, her eyes hollow, her every movement stiff and mechanical, as if she had already accepted her fate. In the quiet moments, when I was alone with her, I would remind her of why we were here, why she was now beneath me. And every time, I would see the same mixture of shame and yearning in her eyes. She needed me now. She had nothing left. She had come back to me not because of love, but because she had nowhere else to go. The tables had turned. And now, she was paying the price. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the victory I had imagined. The revenge I had longed for watching her suffer, making her regret her choices, hadn't brought me peace. It hadn't filled the emptiness left by her betrayal. It only reminded me of the hollowness of it all. I had won. But at what cost? The woman I had loved, the woman I had once built my life around, was gone. And in her place was a shell, a shadow of what once was. Was this really the victory I wanted? I wasn't sure, but it was the one I had. And now, Jenna knew exactly who was in control.